Slides, PDFs, images.
All right. It's Dan and Randy here with the Military Writers Academy, a place where we get together and talk to military and military interested people about writing. Trying to cover a lot of topics. I'm Dan Pace. I'm a retired Special Forces guy and now an author. I've been working with Randy for a couple of years, ever since I started writing. He's, of course, an editor, but really enjoy getting out there and talking to people. Done a lot of self-publishing work and have learned a lot of some easy and some painful lessons. And so one of the things we'd like to do out of this is talk through a lot of that, sift the best practices from the worst practices, and then help you as a community figure out how to move forward with, whether publication or writing, whatever you fit. Now, Randy, what about you? You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Randy Searles. I'm a ghostwriter, book coach, developmental editor. I've done a couple podcasts about writing, and I wanted to get this started with Dan. I wanted to get this live started with Dan to answer any questions out there. I know people have a lot of questions when they talk to me, so I don't know. I just can't find anyone to come to the podcast. So if you know anyone that wants to know these answers, have them come to the podcast and ask these questions.
That's good stuff, right?
But I was also a Green Beret for a while. So I don't know if I coined the term military editor, but I call myself a military editor. And because most of my clients are writing memoirs or writing military fiction novels or have some kind of military concepts in their books. So I can give them a lot of help with that.
Well, it's good stuff. And I think, to your point, there's a lot of people that get out of the military that want to start writing, either because they want to write fiction or because they want to write their memoirs down, and they don't know where to start. And I think there are a lot of other people that want to write about the military. They want to include military content. They want to make it realistic, but that's difficult if you haven't been immersed in the military to really know what works and what doesn't. And honestly, nobody does it better than you, man. So we'll get some people showing up and asking questions. But until then, I think we can record some decent stuff that people can use as starting grounds to get this going. So today, we really wanted to talk through covers of books, right? So one of the funny things about writing that I discovered is that you imagine that when you pick up the pen and you start writing your ideas down, you're like, I got these great ideas. I'm going to put a book together. Like, cool. Let's say you finish your whole book. It does take some doing. You get your whole thing out there. And then weirdly, the work really begins. Then you have to figure out like, I thought I was done. I thought I worked the book and then I was finished with it. And then all of a sudden it just magically turned into this published manuscript. And, Penguin Books is going to pick it up and they're just going to publish it for me. They're going to do all this stuff. It's going to be great, right? Like, no, that's not how it works. Certainly for a noob author like myself. And so one of the things you're going to have to do in that, even once you get past all the editing, even once you get through working with Randy and getting your thing to your manuscript to a really pretty place, you got to make it appealing, and you got to come up with a cover art. You got to come up with cover art that does that. And in the world of AI, to me, it seems that in the world of AI, people are like, well, I'll just have AI create one. I would argue that's not as easy as it sounds. And in the end, you're going to have to do some hard work to make your cover look good. And so we want to talk about that today. We want to talk about what makes for a good cover. How do you put one together? How do you make it appealing? And then how do you kind of separate it from the covers around it? So did I miss anything there, Randy? What else were you going to cover today?
No, I think you stated it perfectly when we finished editing your book and kind of gave you advice on how you might self-publish. And you were like, this is like 80% of the work. Like writing the book was easier than all of this. I have all these skills. There's a learning curve. You actually, for some of the advertising, you have to invest money before you make money and kind of figure out the systems. And so the cover is just a piece of that 80% beyond the writing, the cover and the title, I would say. And it's really important nowadays. A lot of people don't really think about this, but where is everyone buying their books, right? They're buying it on their Kindle, they're buying it on their phone. They're, even if they're buying it on their laptop, they're not going to bookstores as much. Everyone likes a good book still, but it's so convenient to buy it on your Kindle through your laptop, your phone, or your Kindle itself. And the image, when we're talking about title, we're talking about an image that you see it like this on your computer, unless you want to double click on it and get it big. It's about this big. On your phone, it's about this big. On your Kindle, it's the same size. So you have to attract the reader quickly with your cover, because on the computer, on your tablet, maybe even in Kindle, they'll have, hey, if you like this book, you might like these books too. And then you can actually add that in your Kindle. When you're a writer, you can say, hey, what's your book like? And you can say, hey, it's like this. And hopefully you'll get attached onto a really popular book. And when people finish reading their favorite book, they'll see that one and like, hey, that looks like the cover of my favorite book, or maybe I should look at it. And then they open it up, they read the description. And if you described it well, then they're like, maybe I'll give it a try. But that's how quick it goes, right? It's a couple seconds to look at the cover, look at the title. Now the title is really, really important too. Not just what it says, though that's important, but can you read it? I've seen a lot of people who do their own covers, and the contrast between the title and the actual background of the cover is not good, and you can't actually read it very well. Whether you can't read the title, or you can't read the author's name or the subtitle or something like that. So you really got to think about that. And that's what, there's people you can hire for less than $100 to kind of look at your title and make sure the colors contrast correctly and make sure it's the right format for Kindle or Barnes and Noble or Apple or something like that. You can do it for like $50 to $100 easy. But it's well worth it to make sure that you've done your research, and they can read your title and they can look at your cover and say, yeah, this is an action book. This is a love book. I got some examples we can look at later, Dan, but there's some standards that people are looking for. If they're looking for fantasy, if they love dragons, you throw a dragon on the cover if it has dragons in it. If it doesn't have dragon in it, don't throw the dragon in it. You'll just make people mad.
Get those 1 stars.
Yeah, exactly.
I was promised dragons.
That's right.
No, you're absolutely right though. Like that's when we talk about, why does this matter, right? Why does it matter? Everything you just said is absolutely why it matters. You have about 1 second. So to catch that person's attention, whether it's on the Amazon screen, right? So as you look at your book, like Randy said, you scroll down to the bottom of it. What do you get? You get a list of like 5 titles. Hey, you might like these titles. How big are those thumbnails? Those thumbnails are 1 inch by 1.5 inches on my laptop. Phone, even smaller. So when you look at that, you get, what information do you get? You get stars, you get a picture, and you get a title. And so if you have paid, if you set your Amazon advertising up properly, then at least you're on the front 5, right? You're on the screen, they could see it. Now there's 4 other things that they could click on. What are the chances they're going to click yours? Right. And you've got to have something appealing enough. It's like, oh, wow. Okay. The stars is just a gimme. You got to get enough reviews to make it look qualified. Like if it says 3 reviews and you got 4.1 stars, that's not good. Right. That's the kind of thing like, that doesn't look like a finished product. You get over 100, you get up there and you've got a solid, like 4 and some change. Hey, if you get all 5, good on you. I've never managed to get all 5, but you get your 4 and your change. You get enough numbers behind that it looks credible. Now they're like, okay, looks like a real product. Thumbnail. What's your thumbnail say? Now we're going to show some examples just so we can see, what looks good. What's here, I'll add one of yours, Randy, while we're talking about it. But the thumbnail and the title right there has to scream at the person. It's got to say, what does this do for me? What does this make me want to, why would I click this? And by the way, when they click it, you're paying 10 to 30 cents. Just know that the second they click your book, you just paid money to Amazon. So we'll talk about how to turn that click into a sale here in a minute, because otherwise you're just hemorrhaging money 15 cents at a time to have people click and not do anything. But step 1 is really just getting the click. And that's what we're talking about. So what makes you like this cover, Randy? Like, why do you see this and you're like, this is something people want to click on?
Well, it's not that I like this cover. I'm going to give 2 examples. One from like an action book series, a couple action book series, and one, this is the love genre. Okay. Well, you can go back to it.
Okay.
So this is the love genre. Colleen Hoover, last year she had like 5 books on the top 20 best-selling New York Times bestseller at the same time, selling millions of books every day.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Just
she was crazy.
it.
Yeah. And then Blake Lively was just in the prequel, It Ends With Us, which was the book before this one. She was in a movie about this. So Colleen Hoover kind of broke the mold. Okay, so we're talking about what everyone else, like you and me, who are just starting, shouldn't do. She, usually the love genre was like, hey, you got, some tough guy on the front and he's like got a woman in his arms or something like that. that was the norm, right? And then she got really popular, and then she went with these like little pastel colors and flowers and things like that, right? And so she is the best-selling romance author like ever. I mean, like at this point, like I don't think anyone can say she's not the best-selling author at 5 New York there. And some of those books were on the bestseller list for like 4 years. It was crazy. And so this is an example of one. And then you have this other one, Lucy Score, not as best-selling as, but look, she got the same pastel color and some flowers, right? So basically, she's trying to kind of work off Colleen Hoover's, fame by saying people are going to go, hey, I just read this. Looks like, oh, it's not Colleen Hoover. Who's this? And then read the description and say, maybe I like this. And so that's the whole point, right? You're trying to make sure you can read the cover in small print, and because it's got good, it's black on light blue, and then you're looking similar to an author that you're writing a similar type of genre book. So you're trying to attract those readers who are waiting for the next Colleen Hoover book, and maybe they're gonna start liking your books, and they'll read all your books while they're waiting around. That's the objective, right? Now let's show some really popular. So we got, this is your normal action book. And it's got a guy facing away from the camera for some reason. And then it's got like a setting, which is ideally kind of the setting of the book. I guess it's on a pier, on a beach. Maybe it's in, on the East Coast or something like that. And then you got the other one, which I got down there, Guardian. Oops.
Gotcha.
You do it.
Let's do this right now.
I kept removing it.
We're clicking on this. There we go.
So you got another one, and this guy's obviously he's got some military stuff on. So you might think he's a military guy. And then I have an Orphan X one, which I didn't load up, but they're all very similar, and these are all military, ex-military, paramilitary, CIA guys. So they're looking away from the camera at their setting. This one looks like it might be like Vietnam or something like that. The other one looked like it was at a coastal beach setting. A lot of them are in the city, like Eiffel Tower in the background, so it's in Europe or something like that. And these are the books, the action books with these kind of paramilitary characters that a lot of guys especially like. And so you kind of try to emulate those so that when it says, hey, if you like that, you may try this. They're like, oh, cool. It looks just like the book I just read. Maybe I'll like this one too. And that is the whole point of marketing nowadays, because you're not going to the bookstore and because in the bookstore, right, it's all alphabetic unless you make it to the front table, right? Mm-hmm. And then you pray that you get on the front table, or you pay or you pray that you're going to be on the front table, right? Or if you're in the bestseller section. Otherwise, you're in alphabetical order. And then you pray that maybe there's too many of your books, so they have to put it front forward because they can't put them all side by side. But nowadays, a big part of marketing is just getting the cover and the title right, so that people can find you just by accident. Ideally, strategically, accidentally. I just made that up, but that's probably the way you want to look at it, because this is the way of the future for now, anyway.
That's like the way of the present, right? Like I like what you said about mirroring, right? So one of the cold realities of stepping into the world of writing right now is that unless, I don't even know if there is any unless, I'm just going to say that in all cases, if you're a new author, your ability to get exposure is low, right? Very, very low. And you're competing with people who are well established. So there's lots of much better than yous out there who have larger advertising budgets and established readerships that are out there kind of flooding the market. There's also a million more of yous who, whether, you're an amazing writer like the next, Charles Dickens, or you're just a garbage writer, the new reader or a reader will not know the difference, because you're just one more person who has 1 to 0 books out there. Why should I try you? Why should I taste this thing that you are offering me, as opposed to this other thing that I know? And so you've got to develop some ability to say, well, this is why I should try you. And one of the ways you can do that, I think that's the most effective, is what you just described, right? A little bit of image mirroring, right? So you find someone else who has a nice, action, like you said, this dude right here is great. You look at this cover, you're like, okay, if I make a cover that is suggestive of this, if I'm writing in the same genre and I make a cover that is suggestive of this, and I mean, this may sound a little shitty, but on the next reads, they might actually think that it's that person's book at first. When they first click it, they're like, "Oh wow, new book by that guy," and they click it. Well, it's not by that guy, but you've drawn them in that much, and so then you have the ability to kind of turn that into a sale by saying, "Okay, well, it's not by that guy, but it does look like something I would like. Maybe I'll give it a try." And at that point, you've got the person. Ideally, your price is nice and low. Let's not kid ourselves. This is a little bit of a tangent, but don't price your book to make money on every copy. If you go in there and you're like, "I'm going to put my ebook for $9.99," like, dude, you better be one of the new best-selling dudes who can justify that kind of thing. Otherwise, mark your price low. Even guys like Ryan Holiday are like, "I bottom out my price on my ebooks." Why? Because volume is much more important than individual book profit, because that's really what selling books, again, I'm an amateur at this, I'm not an expert, but that's what selling books seems to be all about. Volume gets you things like movement up in the algorithm on Amazon because you're actually selling copies. It gets you spots on the bestseller list, right? Volume is what's going to move you to the top and have Amazon say #1 bestseller. That tag floats day to day. You'll actually capture that if you get some volume. It's also what's going to get you reviews, because the reality is most of the people who read your book aren't going to bother reviewing it. Even your friends and family are like, "Please review the book." I don't know if I've got the time for that. It's just the reality. It's difficult to get people to do it. And the idea that you're going to get a stranger to do it and type something thoughtful is difficult. And so the way you get around that, my experience, is just volume. You're like, all right, if 8% of the people who buy this book review it, which I'm setting it right about that, 7 to 8% of the people who buy my book actually leave a review, then how many are you going to need to sell to get that 100, 200 reviews that are going to start making your book look more credible? And all of that is generated and kind of predicated on the idea that somebody's going to click your book in the first place, particularly as a new author. And what Randy's talking about with, screen mirroring, to say, all right, Mr. Hood here, I don't know if he came first or if Mr. Ryan came first, but whichever one of those dudes came first clearly saw, like, I'm going to hitch my wagon to this. We're going to go ahead and ride this, and hopefully we're going to take this and kind of turn it into, an expanded readership. And then once you get your hooks in them, hey, people will come back. I think I'm the same way. If one of the authors I love writes something, I'm going to come back and read that almost automatically. But I'm not going to do it for somebody that I don't know. And so how do you kind of get that out there? I think what you're talking about is absolutely how you get started.
So what these are obviously fiction books, but I mean, you can probably talk about the nonfiction. My experience is for nonfiction is, a cover that tells the story that's in the book, and if it, ideally, it's just not a picture. Like I did a memoir of an Air Force pilot. He retired out of the Air Force, lieutenant colonel. Then he raced airplanes after he got out, and started a $1 billion business in gasoline and products and fuel transportation and stuff like that. But he was a A1 pilot in Vietnam. He flew before Vietnam was officially a war, and supporting Green Berets and people on the ground that weren't supposed to be there probably. And he had a picture of his A1, him standing as A1 with his ODs on. And that perfectly said, like, this book, like, probably about half the book was about his time in the Air Force. And the other half, maybe like a 25%, was about his childhood, and 25% was about his business. So most of the book was about his military career when he's in the Air Force. So it's perfect, and then probably the most pivotal time, the best, most action-packed chapter is the Vietnam chapter, where he was just like, 100 feet off the ground, dropping napalm and stuff like that. Crazy stuff. And so he had a picture of himself, standing by the A1 like every pilot does. And it was perfect, because that's what the book was about, and if you can, and then I just did a memoir of a Canadian. It's called Rescued. She went with her husband. They were like 19 or whatever. And he decided he wanted to go live on an island out in the East, in Newfoundland.
Wow.
And the Canadian government had moved everyone off those islands. So they just left their houses. He gave them like money, and they moved them out. So there's just a bunch of empty houses on this island, and they just moved in. No electricity, no running water. They just figured it out for a year. She had like 2 children. No, she had 1 child there, and she was raising a child there, and they're just by themselves, and they had to go by boat for 4 hours to get to civilization, like Jeremiah Johnson or something like that. And it was a crazy story. and she had a map of Newfoundland with all their journeys and all the different important parts of her book in there. And it looked like an old kind of like Indiana Jones, scroll map and stuff like that. And it's perfect. And it's burned on the edges and stuff. It was perfect. It was exactly what that thing wanted. What people were like, what the hell is this about? Is it Indiana Jones? Oh no, it's real life. She ended up being a bestseller on Amazon. It was great. And then your book is amazing. You should talk about how you came up with that, because it's awesome.
Okay. No. One, I'm glad you like it, right? Because you never know. I guess to back up a step, the creative process of creating a cover, one, thinking about all the things you just said and then turning that into something that actually exists. Like sometimes it's really easy. Like again, my man with the Vietnam, who was the Vietnam pilot, picture himself next to the A1. Sometimes it's that simple, right? You're like, this perfectly captures it. Who is his readership? His readership, probably a lot of dudes who were in Vietnam, probably a lot of dudes who were pilots. And they're like, bam, correct uniform, correct airplane. That's an era I want to read about. Let's pull that guy in. And so awesome. Great on him. But sometimes in my case, it was like, okay, I feel that the unit picture or the picture of me standing there is a little overdone. There are a lot of books on a rack. I'm not faulting anybody that does that. It's just, if you look at books on a rack, a whole shitload of them have, let's say, the cross sabers or guy in ACUs or vehicle kind of standing there posed and like, this is my unit. Here's a rack. So how do you create distinction? Like those are all probably great books. I've read some of them. I haven't read all of them. How do you create separation from those books? To me, what I wanted to do is like, well, what is the book primarily about? And what was, I feeling while I was there? And so I was confused. I'm a new lieutenant. I'm trying to figure out this giant mess of downtown Baghdad. I'm trying to figure out like, how do you lead people? How do you like keep your family together? How do you, not get guys killed and also unravel this puzzle? And for whatever reason, that just in my brain clicked to one of those old memes about the chalkboard guy, like the mad scientist who's standing there, like looking at the chalkboard, the giant chalkboard of like all the facts and figures. And you see it on like silly corporate, like PMP quizzes to like show confusion and how do you kind of unravel it. And so I saw it, it was like, that's it. That's what I would love to do. And then you just had to figure out how to turn that into reality. So in this case, I wanted something that would, okay, on the thumbnail, you see a guy in ACUs. You see Tale of the 1st Infantry Division in Iraq, 2006, 2008. I wanted to be really clear with the reader about this is kind of what you're getting. Now, okay, what within that are you going to get? And to me, the chalkboard, and I've had multiple people tell me this now, the chalkboard is like, I want to zoom in and read what's on that board. I want to see what's there. And so I've had a lot of people say that they kind of clicked and zoomed in on it specifically in order to just read what's on the chalkboard, because they're like, well, that looks interesting. What the hell is this guy looking at? How do I zoom in? How do I want to make more? And I kind of accidentally stumbled on that being, I think, a reasonably effective way to get clicks. And so I'm going to use this model for my upcoming book as well, because honestly, it worked pretty well. But to your point, like, does this cover check the blocks, right? Okay. What period is it at? It's Baghdad, 2008. Guy in ACUs. Cool. Got it. Okay. Title says, okay, it was what it was. To me, that's an armyism. I think it's kind of a clever armyism. Some people actually really hate it. They feel like it is what it is like a bad noise that the army makes. Like it's a kind of a waste of thought kind of thing. But for me, it's a good army cliche. And so like Tale of the 1st Infantry Division in Iraq, 2006, 2008. Readers should know what they're getting. The book, like with your friend, is probably 70% about that, with the other 30% being a little bit before and a little bit after. But the heart of the book is absolutely that. And I did cheese out and just throw on that #1 Amazon.com bestseller on there because, hey, whether or not, I mean, it was a bestseller. You put that guy on there. I kind of believe that it makes people want to click it. I don't know. I mean, you do this more than me, but I feel like you just can't go wrong. Get your #1 bestseller, throw the little seal on there, and then all of a sudden looks a little bit more credible.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it was amazing. And then show your next one, because that looks really good too.
Okay, so then we talk about like how we get this thing going, right? So this chalkboard wasn't actually a chalkboard, but this chalkboard was, so I have a buddy who does photo editing, and I was like, hey man, I want to do this chalkboard, but I don't really want to buy a 30-foot chalkboard in my house. How do I do this? He's like, no, it's easy, man. Go get a piece of butcher paper and a charcoal pencil. And what you do is you draw it out on butcher paper, and then you send me an image of yourself or the guy facing away from the camera, and then he could put those together using Photoshop. So what I produced This is actually for my upcoming book. But what I produced was one of these. So this paper is 4 foot by about 5 foot. And let me see if I have a way to make this zoomed in. Is that, I guess if you full screen it, you can see it pretty well. So what this is a 4 foot by 5 foot piece of paper that I rolled out, and then I got some charcoal pencils, and then I sit and just draw it out. To me, I start with, okay, well, what's the basic question? Like, to me, this book is about being a private. So this book is about being a private in Afghanistan with the 10th Mountain. I just joined the Army. I didn't know shit about it. I also just got married. And so to me, I'm like, okay, what were the essential things that I was confused about then? Okay, the Army right there, big in the bottom left. Marriage, Afghanistan. I decided to fill the corners with kind of my big problems. And then the question I kept coming back to every time I would look at these is like, what the hell was I doing? And so that's what I decided to put in the middle. I was like, okay, what the hell do I do? Because that's what I want the reader to capture, is me standing there looking at this board as a young private, is trying to sort out this enormous amount of confusion. And in doing so, being exposed to these outrageous scenarios, like, Army training on the one hand, Afghanistan and going to the war, September 11th happens, all of that stuff, trying to process it. And by the way, you got all your normal life too. You're broke, you're married, you got no money. You've got people yelling at you all the time. And so sticking all that together, this is supposed to be kind of a mind map of what was going on in my brain at the time. And if I take this image and I send it to my guy, Chad, he will turn this into a chalkboard, and then he'll take a picture of me in DCUs with a green vest, because that's what everybody was wearing in the early war, because we didn't have DCU pattern vests, because the Army was not going to sell that kind of money. It's like, you keep your green vest, but they did give us DCUs. And so that combination, I think, will communicate to the person, okay, I get the period. I get the 10th Mountain Division. I am going to throw the word shenanigans in the title. It's going to be it'll buff out a private's tales of war and shenanigans with the 10th Mountain Division, because I do think that some people like to read about a little bit of shenanigans, and it does have that. And so I want to kind of pull people in. And then I hope this chalkboard will kind of complete the trifecta of things necessary to bring somebody in. What do you think? I mean, you think it'll be effective?
I mean, first of all, it rolls right off your first one, which you're managing to market and sell pretty well, so that makes sense. And especially if you're gathering a newsletter or emails, I don't know if you're able to do that, but if you're doing that, then obviously you'll be able to sell it to the same people that should be interested in your writing style. But I think it's amazing. I mean, I thought I always thought your cover was great.
I'm glad it worked. But yeah, to your point, I want to take the color scheme of this book and say, okay, what I told Chad is I want it to be similar in like font and structure to It Was What It Was, but I want it to be visually distinct with like palette. So take the colors from It Was What It Was, take the green text and the black chalkboard, shift that in whatever way he does. He's way cooler with like colors and stuff than I am. I don't have a magic eye for that, but shift it enough so that, hey, if it's going to be book 1 in the series and It Was What It Was is book 2, then when they're sitting on the shelf together, they should make that nice series appearance of like 3 similar but distinct books. And I want that image, because I'm kind of looking ahead at the next book, so that as we put a series together, you get and capture something that actually looks cool. And that's at least the vision. Encourage people to have some kind of vision going into it, just so you're not just like throwing shit at the wall, right?
It's funny you talk about that and you're thinking ahead, because there's a lot of grumbling online about famous fiction books such as The Fourth Wing and some of the other famous fantasy series where he or she made 2 books with one artist, but the backing didn't like work out, and then they decided to get a new artist, and they did all 3 covers new, so everyone had to buy a new set so it looked nice on their bookshelves, and everyone's freaking out. So it's nice that you're thinking about the reader for you.
It's weird, but shelf appeal is a thing. Like, I don't know about you, but I have my books in my house and I walk past them, and when I'll read like Evan Lenoir's Men at Arms series, I love it. I've got a nice set of the 3 books. They kind of sit together. I've got a number of other Chronicles of Narnia. That's another one. Like, but you want those sets of books that kind of look visually nice together. Like, I don't know, it's shelf appeal. I don't really know if that's a thing. It is in my house. I like that to look that way. And so if I'm going to produce a thing, I want to produce a thing that would be like I would like it to be. And so aside from the obvious, you want that similarity, so that when somebody sees this book, they're like, oh yeah, I read that other one that was kind of like this. Like, someday I might sell enough books that happens. And then when you do it, you're like, oh, that looks great. Let's grab this next one. Like, if they're all in Barnes and Noble together, you want people to be able to see like, that looks enough like it that I want to take a look at it. And yeah, plan ahead with that stuff. or don't. I mean, people are going to grumble probably about what you do anyway. And it's hard for me to imagine an author being too upset about people saying they have to go buy more copies of the book just to get the new cover. I imagine the author's like, oh, that's terrible. You have to go buy all new copies. I'm so sorry. It's not polite to the reader, but I imagine the author's probably sleeping well.
Actually, there's a big, couple notes on that. So I just went to a conference. So the first thing is, making collectibles and selling on Kickstarter and selling a special version, like with, blue sparkly paper or something, is a thing, and people will pay extra money for it. And so when they're trying to build money on Kickstarter, a lot of authors will go on Kickstarter and try to collect, even if they get $3,000 or $4,000, that's the edit of the book, or the copy edit or something. So I was involved with 2 people, and they made over 12 grand each. Now that doesn't cover the cost of printing and shipping, but they probably walked away with a couple thousand at least, maybe if not half of what they got. I'm not sure the exact numbers, but that's why people are doing it, because if I have a following, or if I can make a following, especially for my second book, and I can sell it, then on Kickstarter ahead of time, then that covers the art for my cover, that covers the developmental edit, the copy edit. I'm not things out of my pocket. Like, that's the problem with self-publishing. I mean, instead of traditional publishing, you're paying up front for everything and hoping that you can sell it and market it. It may even help you with your marketing, because if you got a couple $1,000 in your pocket, you can go into Facebook ads and Amazon ads and push this thing out, and then actually make some profit, on month 1, and you're not paying yourself back.
So you hit on 2 huge things right there. One is, even once you've got your cover and everything else together, even once you finally have your layout done, you've got that top quality book, the launch and launch day is absolutely critical. And it's a thing that I have not probably put enough attention to with my first 2 books, and I'm going to put a lot more attention to this time. And so that launch is a huge one. The second one is really those out-of-pocket upfront costs that you should consider when you're stepping into this, because they're related. But if you can kind of solve the first one, then you can also solve the second one. And by removing that kind of out-of-pocket upfront cost, you can really reduce the burden on this, on yourself, particularly if you're looking to do this as maybe a side hustle until you turn into a full-time job. It's not going to be a full-time job up front. Just go ahead and take that out of your head. Don't even pretend that your first book is going to somehow magically be profitable enough that you're going to be able to just sit and write, unless you have alternate income, and then, hey, that's on you. But it's just not going to generate that kind of money up front, in any case that I'm aware of. And so don't assume that it will. But that launch, that Kickstarter. So to your point, like, well, okay, what can I do? Like, I'm going to kickstart this book. We're going to work together. We're going to kickstart this next one, hopefully around the end of the year. That'll be awesome. I went out and bought a $17 embosser yesterday. I saw one online, Facebook ads got me. I was like, oh, an embosser, that's cool. You get the little home seal that has like a nice little embossing thing. And they give you these little packet of gold stickers. You put the sticker on, you emboss it, and then you sign it. I'm like, you know what would be a great stretch goal for Kickstarter? I'm going to do a embossed gold seal signed book. It looks awesome. Like, people like that stuff. That's appealing. I'm like, it didn't cost a lot up front. I think it will generate something that can use as a stretch goal, and it will be visually appealing and something that I think people might actually like. But give some thought to those sorts of things. Give some thoughts to, like, well, if I'm going to do this and I'm going to launch this thing, how am I going to make a successful launch? Because the successful launch day is your number one chance, to get to number 1, right? That's the day. No kidding. If you set it up right, you're most likely to get to number 1 in your Amazon categories. If you're really awesome, you can drag that out for a couple of days. Hey, man, that's going to kick your guys straight up through the algorithm. It's going to generate hits. It's going to generate basically free advertising so that people will come and click. And then, God willing, a month later, when everybody receives and reads your book, you'll start getting enough reviews to generate that kind of momentum that you need to keep it steady. Because I will say that lag between the 2, to me, was one of the most difficult parts, where you're trying to get between, let's say, your first and 20th, 25th review. It's launched, you have 0 reviews. You're like, I know this thing's not going to be credible if I can't get anybody to review it. You harass your friends and family to go review. You try and squeeze people to put some in there. But ultimately, you have to get strangers to be willing to do that, and that just means volume. And volume is generated by that upfront launch day. And to me, I think you're right that the Kickstarter is your best opportunity to kind of get enough pregame to launch successfully on Amazon, right? Because you have to have some kind of volume of traffic before, so that people know when the day launches. I mean, the day launches, you can call everybody you know, you could send out 100 emails. That's still not that many people, right? But if you can get people to pre-order, if you can get people to look, if you can get people to say, okay, I'm ready for this thing, and then you do your launch, you can get a lot more sales. And those sales are what are going to drive you kind of up the charts to get your book successfully launched. Does that track more or less with your experiences with it?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't. I helped those two guys with their Kickstarter, but I haven't actually done it myself. So, and as far as getting them into Amazon, I've helped people publish on Amazon through KDP and get their account ready and everything like that. But I've never helped them with the advertising. So you're the expert in that. You've already exceeded my knowledge of that.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I hope I've at least done it, right? It's like so many other things. Like, I don't know if I've done it well, but I've at least done it. And so, yeah, well, I guess we're going to find out. That is one of the things that I think we'll cover a lot on this show, is the idea that we're learning as we go. I mean, I think Randy and I have basically just put our foot in it most of the time. So you're like, well, you know what? We're going to give it a try, because you can watch YouTube videos all day and you can kind of think you can learn it, and you'll find a lot of contradictory advice. Like, I found a lot of things that are like, well, you should do this or do that, or focus on this and don't focus on that, or Amazon ads are terrible, or Amazon ads are absolutely the only thing that matters. You're like, I guess I'm just going to try stuff. And honestly, a lot of this is the same way, right? You just try it. You try it and see. This will be our first Kickstarter to try, and we're gonna give it a go and find out if it works.
I already have a couple, and I already have some mistakes I learned. So I think this will be probably my most successful one. I don't know if it'll be financially the most successful, but it'll be the least problematic, and maybe the least loss of income that could have been there.
Well, so that's huge, right? Because the market, I mean, you could mismanage the hell out of the next Ryan Holiday book. He's still going to sell a lot of them, but you could perfectly flawlessly manage my next book. It's still not going to touch his numbers, right? Because there's so many other factors, but we can do the best we can. We could do the best we can and see where we go with it. And hopefully, to your earlier point, which is absolutely critical, hopefully at least cover all the costs that you put into it, right? Like cover art, you could go a bunch of different ways with it. I would say I spent on average about $500 getting the design and all of the little templates done, right? Because, another fun thing you didn't know, there's actually a lot of things that go into it. You have to get multiple sizes of cover. We have a chat, by the way, Randy. We have somebody that's chimed in. We'll address you here in just a second, but you have to actually build all those templates out, your hardback, your paperback, your ebook, all of that has to get done. And it all has to get done with a tool set that you probably don't personally have. And so you're going to have to pay somebody to do it. Those costs start adding up quickly. And before you know it, you're like, well, I'm, let's say, $4,000 to $5,000 in the hole in this book. And if you could make that up on the launch, then at least you can kind of get into this thing at zero, which is huge. So we got one chat here. We're just going to show it up and say, hey, would you say the Kickstarter only works if you have some kind of following on social media beforehand, or can it work independently? Randy, I'm actually going to let you answer this first. Like, so the two people who you worked with to do Kickstarters on, what was their social media following like before?
Yeah, they both had pretty good social media following. However, Kickstarter also internally pushes it out, and so it helps. Obviously, it helps if you have 100,000 people following you on all your social media, and you can advertise to it, and like 5% of those guys buy it. That's great. But Kickstarter is going to internally push it out too, because they obviously want people's business and they want people to be successful, and they get a percentage. I think they get 10% of whatever you make as well. Mm-hmm. So they're going to take that. I don't think you should do it unless you know that it doesn't cost any money to do it. So you're not going to lose anything, right? And then you have to state a minimum. And if you don't ever make the minimum, then nothing gets purchased, nothing gets charged, no one loses anything. You just waste your time. So it doesn't hurt. It may be a time investment thing that you wish you never thought about, but if anything, you've learned a new skill. And then if you know you're going to launch 6 months from now, you can start building an email list. You can start advertising, you can look at some YouTube videos and figure out how to make ads for your social media and put ads on your social media. And start accumulating people that hopefully will buy it, and then also really going on podcasts, the week it's launched podcasts, you're immediately talking to all the followers of that person. So if you can get on some podcasts where, total 5 podcasts that total 100,000 people, well, ideally 1% buys your book. That's 1,000 sales, which puts you in like the top 30% of people who sell books.
Oh, and that's huge. So I guess my answer to the question would be related, or be very similar. Like, I don't think it can hurt to do it. I think as long as you don't do anything reckless, like set a price point that even if you make it somehow bust your budget, like let's say you set it at $5,000 and then you promise some wild stretch goals, and then people not nearly enough clicked it, but you got the 5,000, but you're out $8,000 because of what you promised to deliver. As long as you're kind of judicious with that, I can't see that it hurts. And I will say, as somebody who's done a lot of podcasts and does a reasonable amount of meta advertising, if you can drive traffic toward that Kickstarter, so let's say that 6 months out, that Kickstarter exists, the page is there, people can spend money anytime between the day you launch it and the day that you actually deliver. They can click and spend money on that thing. So if you can drive traffic to that site, well, that's a lot better than getting up on the podcast or having an advertisement that drives traffic in a general sense towards your book. It's like, this book is coming out. People are like, great. Let's say that they love it. Let's say that they cannot wait to buy your book. If there's a link that they can click and basically promise to buy your book because they're excited about it that day, that is infinitely better and more valuable to you as somebody trying to sell books than them having the general idea that your book's coming out and be excited about it and then forget about it when they got to take their kids to football practice 2 hours later, because we all have way too much crap to remember, right? Unfortunately, we all have the memories of goldfish now, and that's just the tragic reality of 2025 internet life. And so you got to be able to capture people in that moment and get them to commit the resources, because then they might not remember again for 2 months. Okay, then your book's going to come in the mail to them. They've already bought it. That's awesome. And then you have another potential review and you've got a locked in sale. So I can't see any downside, even if you had zero. Like, honestly, my first book, I had zero social media. I came out of the Army. I was a clean slate, never touched it, didn't want to touch it, security clearance problems. And so building from that zero is difficult. But since then, managed to put together a little bit and get something going. And I think with Kickstarter, that's going to be huge. If you want a podcast, you have them drop that in the show notes. Even if 20 people click out of the 700 that watched it, that's 20 sales that you didn't have if you didn't do that Kickstarter. So I think it's got to only be a win.
And you're not paying for those ads, 20 sales with not paying for the click ads. But I think what's really important about that is, setting up your platform, like getting a website for your author website, your book website, so that you have some place to direct people, and then offering some kind of way to capture people who are interested in what you're writing in a newsletter or in an email list that you can email once a month and say, hey, I'm still working on my second book. I'm planning on bringing it out in December. So letting them know that it's out, because once again, those are non-click sales, which save you money. I mean, if you're making $4 a book, which is generous, if you're making $4 a book and you're paying 20 cents every time they click, that's 20 cents you didn't get. If you sell 1,000 books, that's a couple $100. So the more you can get free advertising, like being a guest on a podcast and finding those podcasts where your ideal readers are hanging out, that is going to be gold, because those are free. That's free advertising for you, and free advertising for your webpage to get them to your webpage so you can get on your email list, and thinking about that ahead of time and making sure you figure that all out, so that next time when you write your second book, like you said you're going to have 3 memoirs, right? Before, during, and after Iraq. And so therefore, if someone liked this writing, liked your style of writing, and was interested in what you said here, those 500 people may be free buyers of your next book if you tell them, right? And then hopefully other people will click on your advertising, but you're not having to pay for that advertising. It's great.
So that is a piece of it that I have read about and I'm on the path to solving, but I have not solved yet. So honestly, this is going to be a work in progress that we're going to try and do, right? I have a website. It's all right. My son's a tech guy. He's working on making it better. And one of our objectives is, by the time this launches, to have the Shopify set up so that you can do direct sales off of the site. But we also, as a goal, want to make sure that there's a little bit of extra content. In this case, it's going to be extra photographs from the original book that you have to register with the site to get, because collecting email addresses and the ability to kind of reach back out to people that like your book is huge, but also difficult. Like, it does take some kind of effort to put that together. You have to have some kind of system to do it. And it's not just as obvious as, well, they bought my book once, they'll buy it again. Like, probably, if they know about it. How are you gonna communicate to them? Like, you don't call them on the phone every day. You don't want like a text group with them. And so that's challenging, but we get a little better each time. And so to your point, yeah, that's absolutely essential. If you can drive, like, the best case, I mean, driving stuff to Amazon is good because a lot of people buy books on Amazon, but driving direct sales is even better. And honestly, even if you drive it to Amazon through your website, that's better, because Amazon attribution is a thing, and Amazon will give you a kickback as the owner of the website if the clicks come from your site. And so that there's no downside to doing it that way, except that it does take time and effort to make it all work. And it does take a degree of learning to just get it functional. It's trickier than it seems, but
yeah, I haven't done the mathematics of, like, if they go to your website and click on the buy in Amazon, is the kickback enough to offset the hassle of direct sales?
You're still making less. So if they go to Amazon, you're making less than if they bought a direct sale. 100%, definitely, you're making less. But I think a lot of people are more comfortable buying from Amazon. I think a lot of people, I personally don't know how you sell an EPUB, for example, directly off your site. I mean, I know in theory how you do that, but then they're going to have to put it onto their Kindle themselves. They're going to have to drag it into their e-reader through like a download or like a Wi-Fi transfer or something. I mean, it's trickier.
Let me tell you how.
Go ahead, please. If you know a solution, I'm all over it.
BookFunnel.
Okay.
BookFunnel is specifically designed for that. You can you can load up your book, your digital book, and you can actually send it to your beta readers, and it'll just be isolated. They'll have a special link, and it'll be able to download it on their Kindle, and then they can give feedback, and it kind of requires them to give feedback. And then you can also sell it, and you can buy a subscription to BookFunnel for whatever, $25. There's different, however many books you're selling. If you're going to sell over 5,000 books, you have to go to the next level or something like that. But then BookFunnel takes care of all of it. You sell it off your website. They give you a link. You get the book that goes to the BookFunnel site. They pay. You get your money, whatever, every month or every couple months, or however it works. I know Amazon pays like every 3 months, or like after 3 months or something like that. But yeah, and so it's not, they're charging you a constant fee, like $25 for the first 500 or something like that. I don't know. I'm making numbers up, but it's something like that. So might be paying $25 for not selling any books. So you ideally are still selling. And once you stop selling, you're just like, okay, no more BookFunnel. But the difference is, like, you're, for a digital book on Amazon, you're getting 70% of the base of whatever you're selling it for. If you're selling it for $10, you're getting $7, right? Minus the creation
listing
fee.
Cost.
There's a little bit more, but it's about $7, $6.50 or something like that. And then if you've got a print book, you're getting 60% of that after the price of the book. So you're getting 60% of the profit. But the digital book, obviously, you get a larger amount because there's no cost. There's just that little 50 cents or whatever to store it in their archives or whatever. And then for the audiobooks is like 40% or something. It's crazy for Audible.
Mm-hmm. No, it's right. And the reason it works is because, I mean, honestly, I don't have anything but love for Amazon as a dependent author. And I know some people will probably hate that, but they really do make the experience pretty easy in terms of like publishing a book, getting it listed, getting your book driven up, figuring out how to actually list it. They give you a nice author page that, looks credible and people will link to. And so I don't complain about them at all. They're actually really good. But if you can sell direct, well, it's just that much better, right? And so if BookFunnel or BookVault is the equivalent that I use for published books, BookVault will link directly to your webpage. You click buy, they'll print that guy off and send it, and it's substantially cheaper than buying it off Amazon. So yeah, as you move toward that direct sale model, and let's say you've got just the viewership or maybe the tech savvy, awesomeness to make a site that's so good that people just want to buy directly. Like, hey, amazing, do that. You will make more money per sale. But
I'm seeing people on their book in the back of their books talking about like, hey, support me, buy my book straight from the webpage. We talked about this last time, buy it straight from the webpage. I'm going to make, 30-40% more. You're supporting a struggling author. And I mean, there's significant, I mean, if you're selling thousands of books, this is a significant profit you're giving away to other people. You're going to give something away no matter what. Like BookFunnel is going to take their $25, whether you sell a book or not, right? Book Vault's going to take a percentage, like 10% of not the cost of the book, but whatever the profit is, I think, which is a lot less than Amazon. And it's not going to get there as fast. So there's push and pull. And you pretty much have to list on Amazon if you want to, sell your books. That's where everyone's going to look for it in the beginning.
I mean, the cold reality is that just from an advertising point of view alone, you might be good enough at like meta ads or something that can attract off another platform and drive people straight to your site. But the reality is that my most successful advertising still comes off product-driven Amazon ads. And that means when somebody buys a book and they look down under it on books you might like that are like this, my book's there because I pay Amazon to put it there. And most of the time when people buy my book, that's where they found it. Because the reality is like, hey man, I live in a small town. I'm not going and setting up, tables out in front of Barnes and Noble where 7 million people come. If 7 million people still come to Barnes and Noble anywhere. And so I got to get that exposure there. And I don't have a platform to drive that anywhere else. And so for newer people like myself, and like I think most of the people who are going to be tuning into this are going to be, that's where you got to start. Amazon advertising is good. And if you put some work into building one quality product that doesn't suck, right? If your book sucks, hey man, I don't know. It's just that there's nothing you can do about it, right? But that's okay. We all learn that the hard way, one way or the other. But if you put something that's good and then you make it visually appealing enough that people will buy it, then you can sell books. Like a new author like me could sell books, and you can too. I 100% believe that.
I wanted to be. We're almost up to our hour. I wanted to show a book that I ghost wrote, and this is the cover they made, right? Mm-hmm. So this is I guess what we would call a bad example, though the book's really good and it's very useful. What do you, without looking at the title, we can look at the big title and what's on there. What do you think the book's about?
I'll be honest, like even as you're talking, I was trying to decipher it. I don't have any idea. Like I see God Never Moved with clouds. So, okay, my initial take is like God never moved. So I'm expecting some kind of story about maybe trial or adversity. We've overcome it. Okay. And then I look down, blue, got it. And then I see a can of gas. I'm like, what? I mean, it kind of just jerks me sideways. I'm like, I don't have any idea what this is. I mean,
right. And
that could be appealing, but it may be like, oh, it's comedy. Let's see what's crazy about this. But
and then the subtitle, The Couple's Journey Through Fire to Life. Okay. Which is very kind of vague, right? So yes. This is an amazing book about a 50+ woman who was out cutting branches from a tree that was interfering with her getting her son every day. So she climbed this tree because her husband was sleeping in, and she was cutting limbs off, and he comes out and he's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, you weren't awake." So he starts cutting the limbs off, and they had a chimenea in the back. Mm-hmm. And so they threw all these limbs in there and they couldn't get it to light. So he threw a bunch of gasoline in it. He threw a match in it. This fireball came out and she caught fire.
Oh God, that's not funny at all anymore.
For like 5 to 10 minutes, she's running around the yard with white flame coming off of her, and people trying to put her out. And finally, some guy got his hose, brought it over, and was hosing her down. And then they called the paramedics. Like 95% of her body, 30-degree burns.
Oh my gosh!
She was in a coma for like 4 to 6 months. And then she came out of the coma. It took 2 years to kind of recover. And Jerry, her name is Diana, and Jerry was like supporting her. And they were just about to get married too. And Jerry was supporting her through the whole thing. they had to go through, Medicaid, and, hey, you can't, if you make more than $500 a year, you can't get Medicaid to cover all your medical expenses, and just all this crazy, crazy stuff that they went through. Then she went through rehab, and she had to go through multiple surgeries. And then she became an advocate for burn patients, because there's just a library of books written by doctors about burns that a lot of doctors just never read. And it studies like, hey, if you give them this through IV while they're recovering, their skin will be more supple. If you do this, then they probably won't do that, vomit as often. If you give them magnesium or whatever, there's all these things that she just started reading all these books, and then she would come in and to the hospital and talk to the patients and say, "What's the problem?" I was like, "I've been vomiting." He's like, "Oh, you need to get some magnesium." Then she talked to the doctor, give him a book to read, and then they start getting. I'm just making up. I don't know if magnesium does it or not, but basically, these are the things she was telling me about, and I put in the book. I can't remember the specifics, but she became this huge advocate for patients, and being able, the interaction between patients and doctors and nurses, and trying to get the right treatment that's already been talked about and discussed in books, but no one was reading the stuff because it was just published in 1 or 2 books. And just an amazing story. And they even made a movie with a famous, was a fake movie about supposedly a famous Hollywood actress that got burned. Mm-hmm. And they said, "Hey, we need a burn patient to play the actress for the second half of the movie." And she got the part, and so he plays herself, basically.
Lemonade out of lemons, man. Lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah, it was perfect. And so she was just an amazing woman, and Jerry was amazing for helping her through all this. And they ended up getting married last year. So, but they self-published. And why did they self-publish? Well, we didn't actually query anybody, but the reality is memoirs aren't usually purchased. I just read an article on this too. I could probably link it below in the YouTube. Memoirs just aren't published by the traditional publishers unless it's someone famous or some crazy current event thing that everyone's interested in, which is only going to last for maybe 6 months to a year. So you better get your book out there quick. And if you're just writing a book about your journey, it's really hard to get that published. I mean, there's some publishing companies out there that are looking for these medical things like what I wrote, but it's really hard to find them. And so they're going to self-publish. And this is, I was trying to kind of guide them in the right direction, but we didn't write a lot about their religion in this book. Mm-hmm. But they were part of AA, and God never moved is a common saying in AA, I guess. It's because AA is kind of a Christian religious kind of organization in certain ways. And I'm not an expert, but so they really, these words resonated with them, and this is what they wanted to call it. And I was like, man, I think it's a really bad. I feel like we need to call it Burned, or something like that. To make it really obvious what we're talking about. And then we need to put, if nothing else, a picture of her on the front, burned.
Yes, like maybe all in bandaged up or something with like.
Would have been really, people would pick it up and go, "What the hell happened to her?"
Yes.
And so they thought this was enough. And like the only way they've been able to sell it is by telling people what it's about and that it's available, as opposed to, if people search for a burn memoir, like if you put burn memoir in the Amazon search, you may find this, but would you actually click on it? Because it looks like something different, right?
Well, it's weird because now that you mentioned that God never moved, I didn't know that was an AA associated term, but to me, associated terms should drive you towards your target audience. Like the titles of my book, they scream at Army people. Whether Army people love them or hate them, they're like, "Oh, I remember people that used to say that. Or I love it or I hate it." But the idea that, like, well, if an Alcoholics Anonymous guy says, like, "Oh, well, is this about a struggle with alcoholism?"
Yeah,
and then you look at the can of gas, you're like, "I don't know."
No, it's very confusing, and I wish I've been in contact with them. We may try to rebrand it, but I just think if they had chosen a different cover, I mean, this is a very calm cover for the horrific event that happened to her, and then it's just not capturing, right? It's not something you're going to see and go, oh yeah, I got a friend that got burned. They should read this, and that's what you want. You want them to kind of affiliate this with like, oh shoot, maybe I can help someone with this.
Like if I just saw this, I would assume it was like maybe a Terry Pratchett novel. Like it has kind of a feel of one of those kind of like one of those kind of like cheeky British dudes that are like, haha, like here's some weird things that don't go together. Like God, but there's gasoline. Like I would assume, no kidding, that's kind of what it was. And so the idea that it's a serious kind of like really traumatic, trip to success, like you can Google a lot of those. Like look at what those memoirs look like, and they'll look like this. And so probably you want to make it look a little more like one of those if you want to, have the people looking for that heartrending story with the, the triumph at the end of it. The only way you're going to get that is by driving, having them be able to recognize that up front. Because again, Terry Pratchett, that's what I see when I see this. And it's obviously nothing to do with anything funny.
I didn't think about that. That's funny. I want to show one more before we close up. It's another one I did. Load it up here real quick. All right, so this is another one. I didn't ghostwrite this. I edited it a couple times and gave him some guidance on how to write it. But so this guy came to me. He wrote his memoir. He literally was like Christopher Reeve. Like he wrote it by dictating it, and he could move his pinky, and so he edited with his pinky. So the first time I read it, I was like, "Hey man, you got some like a lot of spelling and grammar errors." He's like, "Well." I actually did a Zoom call. He's like, well, you see where I'm at. And I'm like, oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no kidding, right, man? Like, all right,
so,
that's legit.
So, and originally the title was SCI Super Soldier or something like that. And I said, you're gonna get some backlash on that because you're not a veteran. He's like, well, that's not what I meant. I was like, I understand that's what you meant, but we have so many people who went to war who came back with these injuries that they're going to get confused with this, and you're going to get people that are going to read this and they're going to be disappointed, or they're going to feel like they got tricked or something like that. So and in the story, he actually talks about like superpowers that he got from this injury. Which was like, he's got a better sense of smell because, he can only do so many things. He can't move, but he spends a lot of time smelling and hearing.
Oh, that's awesome. It ties to Christopher Reeve, right? I mean, it's like this, it screams like, oh, it's Christopher Reeve, Superman. I mean, that's still fresh enough. I think people. Yeah, no,
it was a really great, it was a really good, good title. And of course, I think his son might've made the cover or something, it's perfect for what it needs to be. And this guy's got a crazy story. So he's living his best life. He's 40. I don't know when he got divorced. He's got two, teenage kids. He's I think he's in New York or Boston, and he's starting his own business. He just quit his job, and he's doing exercise equipment for the businessman that doesn't have time. So he's trying out like bands that you can connect to your door and push and do your pull-ups or whatever, just like the TRX and stuff.
TRX bands, yeah.
And so he's doing the bands on his front door, which is this huge, like, I don't know if it's wood or I don't know what it was made of, but it was this huge, solid door and of a New York apartment, like something like that. And instead of coming up softly, he bounces up, smacks his head against the door, knocked unconscious, falls down, smacks his head on the marble floor, and he's paralyzed.
What?
He's paralyzed, and he wakes up.
That's the worst.
He wakes up, and apparently, when you first get paralyzed, you just have this wave of pain, and that because your all your nerves are like going sparking and trying to figure out what's going on. And so he'd wake up, and the reason he woke up, he had a brand new puppy. And the puppy was wagging his tail, and he was just feeling this thing on his face. And he was like, what is going on? And then he'd wake up, and he couldn't open his eyes initially. And then his wave of pain would knock him out. And he did that like over and over. And he started getting used to it. And he was finally able to like yell and the neighbors were coming in from a night on the town, and they heard him. They called the firemen. They broke his door down, got him to the hospital. And but
Oh my
but
God.
but that's how his life changed. That's the day his life changed. And he has a book about everything that he went through that the hospitals did right and wrong. And maybe this. I said, who are you writing this for? We talked about this. Your ideal audience last time. Who are you writing this for? Well, I'm writing it for other people like me, so they can learn from me. Okay, it's like, yeah, but you have this whole first section which is about when you were unconscious, and things they should have done, right? And that's like a third of the book. So really, that's not who this is for, right? Your book is for their caregivers, their parents, their significant others, their children, if they're old enough to understand. Your book is for them, so that they can understand the care you think that you should have gotten that you didn't get, or that was incorrect, so that they can ask the right questions to the doctor. And yes, the patients can read it and may learn the last half of the book. They may get something from it, because he's talking about audiobooks, and he's talking about different, ways to enjoy your life again if you were a reader, and music and everything. But really, you're talking, for the first third of the book, you're talking to people that are going to help their person who went through this to get the proper care. That's who you're talking to. And so that's who you need to, pitch this to when you market it and stuff like that.
Oh, that makes sense. And I think, I know we're running late here, so we should probably close up soon. But I think one of the things you touched on is important too, that you can actually market a book to several different audiences if you think that there's different things that appeal to different people. And one of the ways we could talk later about advertising is you could structure campaigns that will target different demographics, different groups. If you feel that your book has the kind of appeal that will appeal to, in this case, let's say, caregivers in the medical establishment who want to understand better ways to treat paraplegics and the experiences that they've had, but also, or quadriplegics, and also maybe like the kind of tale of hope for people newly in that situation, or people who know people in that situation. You could structure your campaign totally differently to appeal to kind of both of those. Say, well, a third of this book is really for these people. Hey, 2/3 of the book is really for you people. Like, I think that could work. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with that.
Yeah, no, no, I agree. But each ad should focus on that audience you're trying to attract, and you'll figure out when people click on them, you'll see your click to buy ratio, and you'll figure it out really quickly who your audience is. And it might be worth advertising to both if both are buying significant amounts to justify the cost. But you have to really focus your ads on those audiences, so that those people are like, this is something I need because of, whatever. I got a friend who's burnt, or I got a friend who's, got an SCI injury or something like that.
No, that makes perfect sense, man. And I think, well, I guess we should probably wrap up, but we spent a lot of time today talking about the apparatus around the writing process. Like, okay, well, let's just say your book's already in the bag. Here are all these considerations you need to think about when you're actually getting this thing to launch. And to me, that's super intriguing stuff, because it's, it's our lived experience. It's the part that we also like, okay, the book's done. That's easy in a sense. Now let's talk about all the rest of this. But maybe next week we should shift back. We should step back and be like, all right, how do we get to this point? Like, it's great that your manuscript's done and you're going to go ahead and market this. You're going to get it launched. You decide how to appeal to all these audiences, but how do you start putting words on paper? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that too. And so this was a great topic, but maybe next week we bounce back and talk more about like the traditional writing process. What do you think? That sound fun?
Yeah, let's do that. I'm going to be traveling next week, so I'll be in my parents' house. So I'll have a lot different background, but that's okay. I'm sure our viewers won't care.
I don't think so. Viewer, we might be singular at this point, but that's okay. You got to start somewhere. Just like we talked about, you got to start somewhere. Okay. Well, hey, man, it was a great conversation. I think we, provided a little bit of value there. I mean, honestly, I took some notes on BookFunnel, so that's going to drive me toward a new solution to a problem that I've had.
I think BookFunnel also does audiobooks as well.
Well, I'm in the middle of recording an audiobook. So we're gonna get that guy out there. We could talk about the audiobook process and production process another time. There's so many fun topics that you don't even know that you don't know until you start digging into it. But hey, I'm Dan Pace, retired SF guy, current author, talking with Randy. We're trying to get awareness out there on how to write better about military subjects and how to help people in the military who are transitioning to writing careers do so productively and without any frustration. And I thank you for tuning in with us. Randy, you want to take us out?
Yeah. So Randy, editor, if you need somebody, give me a call, thestoryninjas.com. And I'm just really interested in your questions and getting the information out there, and especially working with veterans, but we'll answer questions from anybody, really.
That's awesome. Yeah. Check our links out in the show notes if you want to know more about our projects, what we've been working on, and then look forward to seeing you next week.
All right. Take care, guys.